Welcome to the Maura Sweeney Podcast. Maura is an international speaker and the trademark ambassador of happiness with a passion for personal responsibility. She weaves insightful questions with personal stories to challenge your mindsets and empower your best and happiest self from the inside out. Here's Maura with today's podcast for you.
Have you been misunderstood? Well, if you're on a path to living happy from the inside out, today's podcast is certainly for you. Misunderstood and misunderstandings, they happen everywhere, even among the best of friends. But what happens when we are in the midst of a misunderstanding? What kinds of things can we do to work through those misunderstandings and work toward greater peace, harmony, and obviously happiness? The topic came up as recently as last night. I happened to bump into a woman I met several years ago. She's a nurse, not even retired, but from the New York area. And she and I immediately hit it off. She was a darling, fun-loving woman, very, I would say very free in her thoughts. And most recently, we bumped into each other again 3 times within the past week. So last night, we ended up in a conversation. And she said to me, Maura, there must be a reason why we were supposed to get together tonight. She said, I need to share something with you that happened a while ago. Can I do that? And I said, certainly. She said, well, do you remember you happened to make reference to me as being very childlike and innocent? I said, yes, I do. She said, well, I heard you say it. And she said, a little bit after that, I ended up in a situation where I was questioning myself, thinking, am I dumb? Do I not see what's going on here? And she said, I remembered your words. And I thought, was Maura giving me a backhanded compliment? Was she trying to intimate by telling me I was childlike and innocent, that really what she was saying in translated form is that I am a very ignorant an ignorant person or even stupid? And she said, I thought again and thought, that doesn't seem like Maura. But she said, I realized that I heard you say that one thing. Is that what you meant? And I laughed. I said, you know what? The fact that you're childlike is one of the very reasons you are so easy to like and to love. I said, you have no filters. I said, you share everything that's going on in life. And I said, you always manage to smile, even in the midst of difficulties. And I said, remember something. I said, to be told or complimented on being like a child is something that so many of us lose as we get older, because we get bumped around and oftentimes we end up becoming very skeptical in life and untrusting. I said, but you retain that same innocence of childhood. And I even gave her the quote that Jesus gave. He said, except you become like a little child, you can't enter into the kingdom of God. I said, that is an excellent quality. I said, make sure you keep it. Well, that's a very interesting moment of misunderstanding. I was giving such a great compliment, the very reason why I like this woman so much. And she, because of where she was misunderstanding, or let's say this, misinterpreting what I said. Driving home last night, I was reminded of a second situation of misunderstandings. There's another woman I know who lives here in Florida, very bright. She's got several degrees. She retired early, and she's just an exceptional woman, not only in her intellect, but also in her general knowledge. She's a prolific reader. Well, I happen to run into her periodically, and one of the great things about this woman is that she's a fantastic dresser. It's not that she shops at the most expensive stores, but what always stands out to me is that she has a knack for fashion that always looks great on her, the way she puts clothes together and colors together and looks. They're so unique. I just can't help but compliment her. Well, it was probably about a year ago that I ran into her, and I'm admiring an outfit she put together. And she looked at me and she said, Maura, can I tell you something? And I said, certainly. And I could see her brows furrowing. She said, Maura, you're always complimenting me on my clothes. She said, are you trying to tell me that I'm a good dresser, but I'm not smart? Or are you overlooking my intellect? And I laughed. I said, your intellect is so obvious. I said, just one encounter with you. I said, I realized not just what your background was, but the incredible number of books you read and the enormous reservoir of knowledge that you have that so eclipses mine. I said, I hope you don't mind that I say that. But it's interesting that this woman, who's only a tad older than I, was getting complimented on the one hand, and yet somehow believing or misunderstanding that I was overlooking or not being mindful of the fact that she was also very bright. So that was a second misunderstanding. I want to offer a third that came to mind from, oh my goodness, over 20 years ago. I was working with a women's organization at the time, Christian women's organization. And once a week, we ladies would get together to do research and organizing, etc. And when I would be with these other women, it would be a very natural thing for me to compliment people. It's just what I've enjoyed doing probably since I was growing up. The organizer, or let's say the leader of this women's group, one day corrected me, and she said, Maura, it's not a very Christian thing to flatter people. And I remember back then feeling so self-conscious, and maybe I was new to the Christian circles, who knows? But I said, flattering? I said, it was really a compliment. I said, I can't help but compliment good things and qualities that I see in other people. I said, it kind of comes natural to me. The interesting thing was that after I had gone in future times to that same organization, I remember wanting to give compliments and holding back because I didn't want someone misunderstanding my motive. So think about those three experiences of misunderstanding one another. So what do we do in places like that and in situations like that? Sometimes I will talk to my husband or friends and I'll think, I just wish that I could practice telepathy where every thought and every intention of my mind, every picture I'm trying to draw goes from my mind into yours. Because frankly, most of us, depending on our upbringing, our background, our prejudices, and the way in which we view the world and words in the world and values in the world can hear one thing that's designed to deliver one form of a message, and yet we receive it completely differently. I run into that as a situation all the time when I'm writing a blog or doing a podcast or speaking in front of an audience, because my intention is always to be consistent and always to help people see and bring out the best, not only in who they are, but also in others. And I will say last night that speaking or listening to this first woman who asked if she could share with me her feelings about my remarks that she was innocent. She said, well, one thing more, even when I was wondering about what you meant by that remark, she said, I thought about it a second time and realized you are a very kind-hearted person. And she said, something about your personality didn't strike me as one who would ever look to put somebody down. Now, that might be one way in which we can be properly understood, even in the midst of misunderstanding, when our manner of being is relatively consistent. And when people maybe are thinking about misunderstanding us, they could think twice or even reason above and beyond the words and the way those words seem to be charged to say, does that feel consistent with the person I know? But another thing we can do when we're either misunderstood or we've misunderstood someone else is to do a very simple thing, and that is to just ask. Oftentimes we could even get some backhanded compliments from people, but there's nothing wrong with asking the question and saying, it sounds like you're saying one thing. Is that exactly what you mean, or am I misunderstanding you? The time has not yet come where we could either go back in time to before the Tower of Babel's destruction, when everyone spoke and understood the same language, nor are we as yet in a time period where we can simply download one another's thoughts, intentions, and vibrations to one another. So in the meantime, why not think about unifying all of your thoughts and all of your words into one? And secondly, in the event that you hear from someone else a word, a story, an intention that you might want to think about more than once, consider just asking that person what they really meant. And if I could add one more thing to it when it comes to living happy from the inside out, is to always extend grace and a listening ear every time you ask your question. You'll go far, not only in understanding another person, but helping them to be understood better too. Well, that's been my thought for today. I would love to hear back from you on this subject, but if nothing less, remember that we're all misunderstood somewhere and sometime, and there's always something we can do to right the wrongs and find a way to get along better with other people. This has been Maura with More for You.
For more insights on living happy from the inside out, subscribe to this podcast. To learn more about Maura, visit her moraforyou.com website, where you'll find videos, blogs, books, and the Foundations of Happiness self-study e-course. Maura, 4, letter U.com, where Maura is always for you.